So I just want us to understand fundamentally, Genshin is no longer able to compete with Wuthering Waves. Even with some of the bugs and optimization issues we are currently experiencing in Wuthering Waves at launch, Wuthering Waves is already doing a phenomenal job at handling its community and handling those issues. Just to mention a few, they have already been on top of correcting bugs and improving server stability, as well as improving optimization and giving out proper compensation for all of the difficulties the players are experiencing. It's actually reassuring how far they are willing to go and how much they're willing to do to keep their players engaged. But enough about that. We're here to discuss why Genshin Impact will never get its lost players back. And I had a few key points I wanted to address. Sure, the cult following will keep playing and praising anything that game does, like when they increase the resin cap by 40. Genshin will not ever reclaim the players it's lost. Once you stop playing Genshin and play any other game not designed to waste your time, most finally learn to break free. Genshin has multiple systems in place that artificially speed gate your time and prevent you from doing the thing that actually matters, whatever it is that you want. If you want to do certain things or go certain places, you'll need gadgets. And with gadgets, you have to craft multiple of them. They're region specific and they all do various different things, very specific things that all could have been simplified, and it's very arbitrary. They have lengthy crafting processes, and they take an annoying amount of time to finally craft once you finally get the item. Sure, it's only a minute or two for it to actually be physically made, but if you didn't have the materials for that item, you had to physically go out and get those for whatever amount of hours it took you to get those materials. And now you're waiting there an extra 2 minutes for it to be finished. That there's no reason for that to be done. In Wuthering Waves, your gadgets are just given to you. You don't have to craft them, you don't have to find them. They're just given to you after you reach a certain story point and exploration point. There's no need to craft unnecessarily in Wuthering Waves. For the DPS simulation game Genshin Impact, it is very limiting for the kinds of teams and combinations you can perform. Elemental reactions encourage you to use them more than others, instead of being allowed to use whatever team comps you'd like to use. For example, currently in Genshin Impact, the only viable elemental reaction to use is Hyper Bloom. Using anything else does not net you nearly the same performance in Spiral Abyss. It might even hold you back, especially when bosses in said game mode have immunity phases and time-gated abilities that prevent you from even damaging them properly. In Wuthering Waves, we do not have this issue. We can mix and match characters at our leisure, and we can customize our characters' abilities and combat performance to match anything that the game has to throw at us. There's no need to go for specific team comps, although you can. There might be specific teams that perform better than others, but generally there's nothing that's holding you back from doing any of the content. In a game mode, like mentioned before, designed to beat the time that it has set in it, Spiral Abyss, there are bosses that are present with immunity, vacant, or untargetable phases. So if you don't have a specific character for that certain phase of Spiral Abyss, your clear time suffers. I had a C6 Zhao when I played Genshin Impact, and there started to become a point where he couldn't fight any of the bosses because of how terribly they were designed. They were either flying around in the air for a full 30 seconds and not coming down, and me not being able to damage them enough because I didn't have a character that targeted them properly. It's just bad game design. You're forcing people to get something they don't have or can't get, and they are no longer able to play the game. Characters are not content, so the game is designed in such a way where the characters are supposed to be the content, but the thing is you can't always get the characters, or if you don't want the characters, there's nothing for you to do. Genshin Impact has this terrible habit of being a minigame simulator in which everything you do is mostly centered around minigames, so there's no point in leveling up your characters anyway. The game is only designed to have you do arbitrary mini games that are just mobile games in a different font. You're just playing mobile games inside of a mobile game, and that's another reason why Genshin's data or takes up so much space, because they have all of these arbitrary systems stacked on top of each other that waste your time. The world is built and designed to keep you in that game for Genshin longer and more annoyingly than it's supposed to. There are several quality of life features that are not available because they just need you to be in the game for as long as possible so they can keep their analytics up and show investors people are staying in our game for this amount of time. And there's never been a moment where they made anything easier for you to do in Genshin Impact. For example, why can you not craft, synthesize, or just have items given to you in Genshin Impact? It's because they want you to spend hours farming for fish, farming for ores and materials, killing the same enemies over and over again, and redoing domains 4 or 5 times a day until you run out of resin, to show that players will come back and eat up the slop that they are given. In Genshin, nothing is streamlined, nothing is intuitive. It's only fun for the first 20-40 hours. Then when everything is new and you have nothing else to worry about. But once you realize that Endgame is nothing but an illusion, the motivation to play is gone. And let's not be mistaken, Endgame is not difficult combat. It's not really hard bosses. Endgame is the ability to look forward to Endgame is the ability to say, I want to keep playing for this many amount of time because there are systems in place that encourage me to keep playing. There's nothing in place that Genshin encourages you to keep playing. The artifact system is a waste of time because once you reach a certain point of strength, enemies are no longer enemies. They are punching bags. They are just DPS simulators. It's just to look at a bunch of different pretty numbers, which is nothing wrong in and of itself, but trying to be anything else other than that is a deceitful lie that players still playing Genshin Impact are trying to live. There is nothing worthwhile doing in Genshin Impact. There is nothing you can convince me. There is nothing you can tell me that is in Genshin Impact that they have that makes it worth playing over Wuthering Waves. Wuthering Waves has pretty much everything Genshin has that matters and more to do. The driving point of Wuthering Waves is that your time isn't being wasted. So the main thing being, Wuthering Waves has a skip button, Genshin does not. So Genshin forces you to read a bunch of heavy dialogue, listen to a bunch of jargon for every specific quest, for every specific region, when in Wuthering Waves, only key moments are moments you can't just press a single button and skip. That's what Wuthering Waves has. Sure, you can spam click to skip Genshin dialogue, but that takes 5 to 7 minutes in some cases when characters keep talking on and on and on. So that's another reason why Genshin is just not going to get players back, because it wastes too much time in story and you can't skip it, especially when you accidentally walk into areas that automatically start a story sequence that you didn't mean to. Fundamentally, Genshin Impact's dev team has lost the trust of all the players who left, and there is no getting that trust back. They could overhaul the entire game, change all of the arbitrary systems, remove all the unnecessary gadgets, and redo the entire story, and it wouldn't make a difference because they have pissed off all of the players who left, and we are not coming back because Wuthering Waves is just better for our time and it's just more fun. There's nothing that Genshin Impact can do to actually compete with the level of combative fun that is in Wuthering Waves and the amount of stuff that you can do in Wuthering Waves without having your time wasted. There's no way Genshin Impact is going to be willing to spend the money it would take to overhaul the game. At that point, they may as well just develop an entirely different game. And that's why they're making Zenless Zone Zero, but Zenless Zone Zero is not that appealing to me either, because it doesn't look appealing, especially with the TV monitoring system. I didn't even know that the game was still in beta. The whole point of my video is just to describe all of the features in Genshin Impact that have disgruntled players never coming back, and why we're staying in Wuthering Waves. Or if we don't stay in Wuthering Waves, we're definitely not going back to Genshin Impact because it just wastes too much time. They might add specific things for new regions in Genshin Impact, but that's again adding content bloat and filling up your storage space with more crap that you didn't ask for. Layers and layers of systems that players forget about and never use again after moving on to the next region is what's taking up so much space with that game, and you can't get rid of it because it's a essential core part of the game. Like with all of the arbitrary systems in the Sumeru region, it's annoying and crazy. I went through probably 17 tutorials alone for the R&R quest line, and that is something like you'll never have to use again after you use it the first time. So when they create all of these weird specific things for these regions and making them their own separate thing instead of intuitively connecting the world, it makes it impossible to go back and play. Especially when you can't farm for characters on any given day that you want, and you're forced to farm them and for weapons on specific days. All of these systems in Genshin are not going to change. They can't change them, and they won't. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys in future video content.
As the pressure builds, I push back, on the threads of fate. The chords within these fleeting moments find the beat my heart creates. Faint vibrations, words decay, stirring in the twilight, piercing through the silence, echoing throughout the night. They shake the atmosphere, the heavens and the land. A rebellion